Dad, get out! You're fired. Derrick's voice cut through the boardroom, sharp as glass, his eyes glittering with contempt. For 11 years, I had built CarterTech Innovations, my sweat, my time, my life poured into it, and my own son had just thrown me out like garbage. I didn't argue, I didn't beg, I simply packed my things in silence, but inside me, a plan was already forming. Behind his office wall, tucked in that gaudy painting he was so proud of, sat a safe. And inside that safe was the key to everything. His dirty secrets, monikers too. Thursday would be fun, but let's start from the beginning. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The projector hummed faintly above us, its glow washing over the table littered with papers stamped confidential. I gripped the edge of my folder, knuckles pale, as Derrick leaned forward. "You're stuck in the past, Dad," he snapped. His Rolex ticked in rhythm with his words, cold and deliberate. Colleagues shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. People I had mentored, lifted up when no one else would, now sat frozen as my own blood erased me. Monica Price leaned back, her tone smooth but venomous. "Ray, your audits are slowing us down. We need agility, not dead weight." Her smile was the sharpest knife of all. "You're fired," Derrick repeated, his words slicing away the last piece of dignity I still held in that room. His eyes, cold, unyielding, showed no trace of the boy who once looked up to me. I rose slowly, the chair scraping against polished floors. My folder shook in my hands, but my voice came low and steady. "You forget who built this company, Derrick." He smirked, tossing my folder aside. Papers scattered like broken wings. "Progress doesn't care about your sacrifices, old man." I turned toward the glass doors. My reflection stretched tall and ghostly across the walls of the empire I had made. My steps were slow, deliberate. They thought it was over, but I knew where the truth was buried. And I wasn't done. My office door stood ajar, a place that once felt like home now violated. The walls were lined with plaques. Innovation, excellence, growth. All words that suddenly felt hollow. I had bled for this company, carved it from nothing in the heart of Atlanta so Derrick could one day carry the torch, and now he had used it to burn me alive. Angela's photo sat on my desk, her smile warm, steady. My late wife, gone these 10 years, but her presence lingered. I slipped the frame into my jacket pocket, close to my heart. The rest, awards, polished trinkets, hollow symbols, I left behind. As I packed, my hand brushed against a drawer and found one of her old notes. Angela's handwriting, soft and looping. "You're stronger than you think, Ray." My throat tightened. She always knew when I was about to break. A folder marked confidential peeked out from Monica Price's desk across the hall. My gut tightened as I passed. Something about her always smelled like poison, wrapped in perfume. I didn't touch it, not yet, but the thought stayed with me. Down the hall, eyes avoided mine. Men and women I had hired, mentored, guided. They all looked at the floor, too afraid to acknowledge the fall of their founder. Their silence was louder than Derrick's contempt. At the security desk, old Marvin hesitated. He'd been with me since the early days, back when CarterTech was 3 rented offices and a dream. "Mr. Johnson, Ray, I'm sorry," he muttered, voice thick. I managed a nod. "Don't be." Outside, Atlanta rain fell hard, soaking the cardboard box in my arms. The city moved on, horns blaring, people rushing, while I stood in the storm, the weight of betrayal pressing down on my shoulders. My coat clung heavy, but Angela's photo stayed dry in my pocket. At a trash can, I dropped my office key. The metal clanged against the wet garbage, an ugly final note. I slid into my car, leather seats smelling of memory. The engine growled to life, but my thoughts weren't on the road. They were on the safe behind Derrick's office wall. A month ago, I'd seen him slam it shut, his hands shaky. Inside, I'd glimpsed a report, numbers screaming fraud, maybe worse. Derrick thought I was finished, but the truth was still there, locked away, and I was going to take it back. Rain tapped against the kitchen window that night, steady as a ticking clock. I sat alone at the table, Angela's photo propped against a chipped coffee mug. Her eyes followed me like they always had, calm, unwavering, reminding me not to fold. My mind replayed every detail of the last few months, Derrick's nervous laugh when I'd asked about a client's numbers, Monica sliding papers into a folder the moment I walked in, the way their voices dipped when I entered the office. They thought I hadn't noticed, but I had. A month ago, I'd stepped into Derrick's office unannounced. He had been bent over that ugly, abstract painting hanging on the wall. Angela always hated it. Behind it, I'd caught a glimpse of a safe, a flash of white paper, numbers, offshore accounts, invoices that didn't add up. He slammed it shut before I could read more, his face pale, his voice tight. "Just business, Dad. Nothing for you to worry about." But worry was all I had done since. I poured another cup of coffee, the bitter taste grounding me. My eyes drifted to Angela's Bible on the counter, its worn leather cover marked with her neat notes. One line she'd underlined twice came back to me. "The truth will set you free." I wasn't free. Not yet. The company I built wasn't just numbers on a balance sheet. It was meant to be a legacy. For my family. For the young black men and women who finally had a seat at the table because CarterTech existed. And now Derrick was poisoning it for greed. I pulled a small, rusted key from a drawer, the one thing I hadn't tossed in the trash, the old master key to CarterTech. My hand tightened around it. Derrick thought the safe was his shield, but I knew better. Thursday night, that safe would open, and then all of his secrets would be mine. Thursday crept up like a shadow. The city outside my window pulsed with life. Sirens in the distance, traffic humming along Peachtree, rain still clinging to the sidewalks. But in my kitchen, the world was silent, save for the rustle of paper spread before me. The report, the safe, the painting. It played in my head like a film on repeat. Angela's Bible sat open, her notes highlighted in faded ink. "Be wiser than your enemies." Her words steadied me. I wasn't walking back into CarterTech as a broken man. I was walking in as someone who knew exactly what he was looking for. I picked up the old key, its metal cool against my palm. Years ago, when CarterTech was barely 3 offices and a dream, this key opened every door. Most thought I'd thrown it away. Truth was, I couldn't bring myself to let go of it. Maybe a part of me had always known I'd need it again. The plan was simple. Get in. Get the file. Get out. No noise. No hesitation. I thought of Derrick's face when he said the words, "Dad, get out!" "You're fired." It still rang in my ears, heavy as betrayal itself. But Thursday would be different. Thursday would be fun. The back door of CarterTech loomed in the dark, its metal frame slick with leftover rain. I stood in the alley, the old master key biting into my palm, heart hammering steady. The hum of the city seemed distant, just the buzz of a streetlight and the scurry of a stray cat cutting across the pavement. I slid the key into the lock. For a second I thought it wouldn't turn. Then, with a reluctant groan, the door gave way. The hinges squeaked too loud in the silence, and I froze. No alarms, no footsteps, just the sound of my own breath. The hallways inside smelled of paper and stale coffee, familiar and foreign all at once. Exit signs flickered weakly overhead, casting broken light across polished floors. My shoes whispered against the tiles as I moved, each step a gamble. Cameras blinked above, but I knew their blind spots. I had designed this building, walked these halls 1,000 times. At the end of the corridor stood Derrick's office. Heavy polished wood, smug, expensive. I pushed the door open, and the scent of his cologne lingered, sharp and arrogant. There it was, the painting, that gaudy splash of colors Angela once laughed at, calling it money with no soul. I eased it off the wall, wincing as the frame scraped against the floor. The safe stared back at me, cold steel glinting in the dim light. My fingers trembled over the dial. I tried Derrick's birthday, irony bitter on my tongue. Click. The door swung open. Inside lay a thin stack of papers, numbers, hidden accounts, fraud screaming off every page. Monica's signature bled across the margins. Offshore transfers, fake invoices, the kind of evidence that could bury them both. A photo slipped out. Derrick and Monica at some gala, champagne in hand, smug smiles sharp as knives. My jaw clenched. I stuffed the report into my jacket, the weight of it pressing against my chest. Angela's photo was there too, tucked in my pocket, steadying me. "This is for you," I whispered. Then, footsteps, heavy, deliberate. I dove under the desk, knees scraping the carpet. The office door creaked open. A flashlight beam cut across the room, grazing the painting now leaning against the wall. "All clear," the guard muttered into his radio. I didn't breathe until his footsteps faded. Seconds stretched into an eternity. When the silence finally returned, I slipped out from under the desk, my heart still pounding in my ears. The report pressed against my ribs as I slipped into the hallway. Past the cameras, past the empty corridors, out into the alley where the night air hit sharp and cold. The city lights flickered in the distance, but all I saw was Derrick's face as he fired me. He thought he'd won. But tonight I held the truth. The night swallowed me whole as I hurried down the alley, the stolen report pressed against my chest. Rain still clung to the pavement, glistening under the glow of a single street lamp. My breath came shallow, sharp. Every sound felt amplified, the hum of a nearby engine, the rustle of a newspaper caught in the wind. Too slow to be random. Headlights crawled across the mouth of the alley, cutting a blade of white through the dark. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. The car rolled past, its engine purring low, lingering just long enough to let me know someone was watching. I didn't wait. I bolted, jacket heavy, papers rustling like a heartbeat in my pocket. The city was alive, horns blaring, voices shouting from bars, Atlanta's pulse moving faster than mine, but every step felt like I was walking a tightrope above fire. By the time I reached my car, my hands shook as I fumbled with the keys. Inside, the leather seats smelled of memory. I sat still for a moment, gripping the wheel, knuckles pale. Angela's photo pressed against the report in my jacket, grounding me. "This is for you," I whispered again, voice low, steady. The engine growled to life, headlights catching the rain-slick streets as I pulled away. In the rearview mirror, I checked for tails. Nothing. Just the endless city stretching behind me, hiding shadows I couldn't quite shake. At home, the quiet was deafening. The house creaked, old wood groaning beneath my steps. I spread the report across the kitchen table, numbers leaping off the page, fake invoices, hidden accounts, signatures that spelled fraud as clear as day. Monica's name, Derrick's name, line after line of betrayal. I made copies on my old printer, its hum a loyal ally in the dark. One set went into my home safe, tucked behind Angela's Bible on the top shelf of the closet. The original stayed with me. The text came just after midnight. Unknown number. 4 words. You made a mistake. The glow of the screen lit my face, harsh against the quiet. My grip tightened around the phone, the words burning like a brand. They knew, and the game had only just begun. The diner buzzed with morning chatter, steam from coffee pots fogging the windows, the smell of bacon and burnt toast heavy in the air. I sat in a corner booth, a plain manila envelope resting on the table between my hands. Inside, the copy of Derrick and Monica's fraud. It felt heavier than paper. It felt like judgment. The bell above the door jingled. Malik Owens walked in, coat damp from Atlanta drizzle, eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. He spotted me, slid into the booth, and set his notebook on the table. "This better be worth my time, Ray," he said, tapping his pen. "Read it," I answered, pushing the envelope forward. My voice was calm, but my hands trembled beneath the table. Angela's photo sat in my wallet, her smile steadying me. Malik opened the envelope, flipping through the pages. His brow furrowed deeper with each line. He whistled low. "This is big. CarterTech's cooked if this is real." "It's real," I said flatly. His pen stopped tapping. If this leaks, it won't just be your son in trouble. Monica too. Hell, half the board might go down with them. That's the point, I said, leaning back. They burned the legacy I built. Now it's their turn to burn. Malik studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right, I'll dig. Give me a week. He slid the envelope back into his coat, his eyes scanning the diner as if he already felt the walls closing in. I watched him leave, the doorbell chiming behind him, rain sweeping in with the gust. For the first time since Derrick fired me, I felt something stir in my chest. Not peace, not relief, something colder, power. But even as that thought settled, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You're playing a dangerous game. The words glowed harsh against the screen, pulling me right back into the storm. Chapter 8. Panic at CarterTech. Miles away. CarterTech's glass tower no longer gleamed with confidence. Inside Derrick's office, papers littered the desk, a cracked phone screen glinting under fluorescent light. He paced like a caged animal, tie loose, eyes bloodshot. "You said the report was secure," he shouted, slamming his fist against the desk. A coffee mug toppled, spilling across the contracts. Monica stood by the window, arms crossed, her bracelet catching the sunlight as she turned. Her voice was sharp, but her composure was cracking. "Don't blame me. You were supposed to keep that safe locked. If it's gone, it's because someone got sloppy." "Sloppy?" Derrick's voice cracked, panic slipping through. He yanked the painting off the wall, revealing the gaping safe. Empty, his face drained of color. "He was here," he muttered. "My father." He was in this office. Monica's jaw tightened. "Then he's not as broken as you thought." She swept the scattered papers into a bin, movements sharp, calculated, but her eyes betrayed her. Fear. "We need to fix this before it spreads." Derrick dropped into his chair, running a hand across his face. "Fix it? How?" "He's got the only thing that can ruin us." Monica leaned forward, her voice low, venomous. "Then we find him, and we take it back." She dialed her phone, nails tapping the screen with precision. "Vaughn," she said when the line picked up. "It's me." "Someone stole from us. I want names on the other end." The private investigator grunted his agreement. Derrick watched her, chest heaving, veins pulsing at his temple. His empire was crumbling, and for the first time since that boardroom showdown, fear replaced arrogance in his eyes. Meanwhile, across town, I sat in my kitchen, the stolen report locked safely in my closet, unaware that the hunt for me had already begun. The house creaked around me, old wood groaning with every shift of the wind. I sat at the kitchen table, the stolen report spread out before me, pages lit by a single lamp. Fraud, tax evasion, offshore accounts, Derrick and Monica's signatures scrawled across every line. Proof enough to bury them. Angela's Bible rested open beside the papers, her handwriting in the margin steadying me. "The truth will not hide forever." I whispered it under my breath, clinging to her words like armor. My phone buzzed. Another text. "You should have stayed gone." The glow of the screen cut through the dim light, cold against my face. I set it down slowly, my pulse quickening. I rose to check the locks. Front door, back door, windows. Secure, still a shadow moved across the yard. Quick, deliberate. I froze at the curtain, holding my breath as headlights rolled past too slowly to be casual. They were watching. I killed the lights, plunging the house into darkness. My heart pounded as I moved quietly, every floorboard threatening to betray me. I reached into the drawer by the sink, pulling out the same rusted key I'd used to enter CarterTech. It was cold in my hand, grounding me, reminding me of what I still had. Another buzz, another message. "This will end badly for you." I exhaled slow, forcing calm into my voice even though no one could hear me. "Not for me," I muttered. "For them." I tucked the copy of the report beneath Angela's Bible, slid the original into my jacket and sat back at the table. If they wanted to scare me, they'd have to do better than shadows and text messages, because the truth was already moving, and nothing could stop it now. The lawyer's office smelled of old wood and ink, its shelves heavy with leather-bound volumes. I sat across from Clara Hughes, an old friend turned attorney, her eyes sharp behind a pair of glasses that caught the morning sun. Between us lay a small stack of Angela's letters. Her handwriting curved across the yellowed pages, steady, graceful. Clara read in silence, her brow tightening with every line. Finally she looked up. "These prove your stake," she said, voice low but firm. "Angela's notes detail the early days of CarterTech, your investments, your sacrifices. Her signature ties you to the foundation of the company. Combine that with the fraud report." She tapped the pages with her pen. "And Derrick doesn't stand a chance." I nodded, fingers brushing over Angela's words. She had told me once, "Keep these, Ray, just in case." I hadn't understood then. I did now. Clara leaned forward. "We can file a lawsuit." "It's risky. Derrick won't go quietly. Neither will Monica. They'll come at you with everything they've got. Let them," I said, my voice steady. "They already came for me once. I'm still here." Clara studied me for a moment, then scribbled notes with quick precision. "We'll need to move fast. If this goes to court, the judge will demand proof, and you have it." Proof. That word echoed in my chest. The report, the letters, the years I'd sacrificed, all lining up like dominoes. For the first time in weeks, I felt the ground under me solid again. I slipped Angela's letters back into my jacket pocket, close to my heart. Her voice was with me still, urging me forward. As I left Clara's office, the Atlanta sun broke through the clouds, sharp and blinding. I knew what was coming. A courtroom, a verdict, and my son across from me, not as family, but as an enemy. And for the first time, I was ready. The courthouse buzzed with whispers, the squeak of chairs, the shuffle of papers. I sat in the front row beside Clara Hughes, suit pressed, tie straight, Angela's letters tucked safe in my briefcase. My pulse thudded, steady but heavy, like a drum before battle. Across the aisle, Derrick sat stiff in a navy suit that looked too big for him, his jaw clenched, his eyes darting. Monica leaned in close, whispering sharp words into his ear. Her poise looked polished, but I saw the cracks in her grip, the way her hands twisted against her bracelet. "All rise!" the bailiff called. The judge entered, robes flowing, gavel striking like thunder. "Bright Path Solutions," Clara corrected quickly. "CarterTech Innovations, Your Honor. My client, Raymond Johnson, seeks restoration of his rightful ownership." The judge's gaze shifted to Derrick. "Mr. Johnson, your response?" Derrick stood, his voice too loud, too brittle. "He's lying!" His words cracked across the room, echoing in the silence. "He's bitter, trying to tear down everything I built." The courtroom froze. Clara rose, calm as stone, and held up Angela's letters. Her voice was measured, deliberate. "These are contemporaneous writings from Angela Johnson, documenting Mr. Johnson's foundational role in the company, his investments, his guidance, his sacrifices. Alongside this," she lifted the fraud report, "we have evidence of financial misconduct directly tied to Derrick Johnson and Monica Price." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Monica's nails dug into Derrick's arm, her whisper sharp but desperate. "We're done." I watched my son's face twist with fury, his eyes finding mine across the room. For a moment, I searched for the boy who once sat on my shoulders at football games, cheering with wide-eyed pride. But he was gone, buried under arrogance and greed. The judge's gavel came down hard. "We will reconvene with further evidence. Until then, both parties are bound under court order. Mr. Johnson," his eyes flicked to me, steady, unwavering, "be prepared." Reporters surged as the session broke, cameras flashing, voices shouting questions that blurred into noise. In the corridor, Derrick cornered me, his breath hot, his eyes blazing with a fury I hadn't seen since he was a boy. "You'll regret this," he hissed. I met his gaze, unflinching. "You started this, son." I turned and walked away, the echo of my footsteps louder than the storm brewing behind me. The park was nearly empty, its paths slick with fallen leaves, the air heavy with the damp chill of late autumn. Derrick had called, insisting we meet here, his voice tight with something I hadn't heard in years. Fear. I sat on a weathered bench, Angela's photo tucked in my pocket like a shield. The sound of footsteps crunched through the leaves. Derrick appeared, shoulders hunched, suit wrinkled. Monica walked at his side, heels stabbing the ground, her eyes sharp but restless. "Dad?" Derrick started, his voice low, unsteady. "Stop this! The lawsuit, the investigation, call it off." He sat across from me, hands twisting at his cufflinks, the same hands that once held mine when he was a boy. Monica leaned forward, her bracelet flashing in the weak sunlight. Her tone was smooth, but her mask was cracking. "We'll cut you in. Money, shares, whatever you want. You don't have to end up the enemy here." I looked at them both, my son, my blood, and the woman who poisoned him with greed. My words came calm, but sharp. "You think I'd sell my dignity?" Derrick flinched, his jaw tightening. "I made mistakes," he said, softer now, almost pleading. "But we're family. Remember when we built that model plane? You and me, at the kitchen table? You said we'd build something that would last forever." The memory cut deep, but it wasn't enough. That boy was gone, replaced by the man sitting before me, drowning in arrogance. Monica's voice slithered back in, colder than the wind. "Push this further, and it'll get messy." "We can make things difficult for you." Her threat hung in the air, but her eyes betrayed her. She was scared. I stood slowly, my shadow stretching long across the damp grass. My voice came steady, final. "You stole my life, Derrick. You stole my company. You think I'm going to walk away because you dangle money in front of me?" I shook my head. "No, this ends in court, and you pay for what you've done." Derrick's eyes watered, whether from rage or regret, I couldn't tell. Monica gripped his arm, tugging him back. I walked away, their voices fading behind me, each step carrying me closer to the fight ahead. Angela's words echoed in my mind. "Stand tall, Ray." And for the first time, I felt ready to. Chapter 13. The verdict. The courtroom buzzed like a hive, packed shoulder to shoulder with reporters, colleagues, and strangers hungry for spectacle. I sat at the plaintiff's table, suit pressed, Angela's letters locked in my briefcase. Clara Hughes stood beside me, calm as stone, her files stacked with precision. Across the aisle, Derrick shifted in his seat, sweat beading at his temple. Monica clutched her purse so tightly her knuckles turned white. For the first time, they looked less like executives and more like cornered prey. "All rise." The judge entered, his gavel striking with finality. The air grew still, the whispers dying out like candles snuffed in the dark. "CarterTech Innovations," he began, his voice deep, deliberate. "After reviewing evidence submitted by Mr. Raymond Johnson and counsel, alongside the documents detailing fraudulent activity by Derrick Johnson and Monica Price." He paused, the silence stretching tight as a rope. The gavel fell. "Ownership of CarterTech is hereby restored to Raymond Johnson. Derrick Johnson and Monica Price are found guilty of fraud. Chaos erupted. Reporters scrambled, pens scratching furiously, cameras flashing like lightning. Derrick's face drained of color, his tie hanging crooked as he stumbled to his feet. "This is a lie!" he shouted, voice breaking across the marble walls. Two officers closed in, handcuffs clicking sharp in the silence. Monica tried to pull away, her eyes darting for an exit, but her strength crumbled as the steel locked around her wrists. I sat still, my heart steady but heavy. This wasn't joy. This was justice. As they dragged Derrick past me, his eyes met mine. For a flicker, I saw the boy who once clung to my shoulders, who once called me hero. Then it was gone, replaced by rage and shame. "You'll pay for this, old man," he hissed, voice low, venomous. I didn't flinch. I simply met his gaze and said, "The truth always wins." The gavel struck again. Sealing the moment, reporters swarmed, questions flying. "Mr. Johnson, how does it feel? Will you rebuild the company?" But their words blurred into background noise. I stood, gathering Angela's letters, her voice echoing in my mind. "Stand tall, Ray. Always stand tall." And for the first time in years, I did. The cemetery was quiet, the kind of quiet that pressed into your chest. Damp earth carried the scent of rain and fading flowers. I stood before Angela's grave, her photo in my hand, edges worn soft from years of touch. "It's over," I said, voice low, steady. "The company's mine again. Derrick and Monica, they're done." A breeze stirred the leaves overhead, branches whispering like an answer only she could give. I knelt, planting a small flower at the base of her stone, its roots pressing into the soil, fragile but alive. For years, CarterTech had been my reason to wake up, to push forward, to sacrifice everything, even time with Angela, and now I saw it for what it really was, not a gift, but a weight. Derrick had carried that weight and turned it into greed. Monica had sharpened it into betrayal. But I had carried it too, and it nearly broke me. I traced Angela's name carved into the stone, my hand trembling, my heart heavy. Memories rose unbidden, her laughter in our kitchen, her steady voice telling me we could survive anything, her gentle reminder to keep faith when I doubted. "I chose justice, Angie," I whispered, "not mercy. Just like you told me to. Stand tall, always stand tall." The wind lifted, carrying my words into the still air. For the first time in months, maybe years, the weight on my chest eased. I stood, brushing dirt from my hands. The world felt different. Not lighter, not easier, but clearer. Derrick's face, twisted with rage as the cuffs snapped around his wrists, flickered in my memory. He was my son, but he was gone long before the courtroom. Angela had been right all along. Truth doesn't always heal, but it does set you free. I turned from her grave, the flower standing upright in the damp soil. Behind me, the city hummed, waiting for what came next. The house greeted me with its familiar creak, the kind of sound that once felt heavy, but now felt like home. Angela's Bible sat on the kitchen table, her letters stacked neatly beside it, their work done. I slipped the fraud report into a folder and locked it away. The battle was over. The phone rang. Clara's voice on the other end, calm, triumphant. "It's official, Ray. The assets are yours again. CarterTech is in your hands." I let the words sit in the silence, then exhaled. "Not for long," I said. Later that evening, I signed the final papers. CarterTech Innovations, the empire I had bled for, was no longer mine to carry. The assets were already being transferred to scholarships, to community programs, to schools and shelters across Atlanta, places that would outlast me, outlast Derrick, and give new voices a chance to rise. The company had been built in my name, but its legacy wouldn't die in greed. It would live in opportunity. I sank into my armchair, leather warm against my back. The fight had changed me, left scars I couldn't see, but for the first time, peace settled soft as evening light. On the mantel, Angela's photo watched over me, her smile bright, her eyes steady. I placed my hand on the frame. "We did it, Angie." Not for him. For us. For everyone. The sun slipped below the horizon, painting the room gold. My phone buzzed with a new message, but I didn't reach for it. Whatever storm came next, I was ready. Because for the first time in years, I was free. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.